So are we going to war with North Korea? The answer to that question that you're probably wondering because you clicked on this video is, I don't know, and nobody can really tell if we're going to go to war with North Korea or if we're going to go to war with another country in the next day, month, year, 10 years. We don't really know, and it's extremely hard to predict the future. So if you were to ask me, are we going to war with North Korea? The answer is I don't know, but I know that we're ramping up for something right now. Things in the Army, at least specifically in the Army and the Army Reserves, I'm not sure about any other branches like the Marines or Navy or the Air Force. I'm not sure exactly what they're doing. But I know in the Army, we're starting to ramp up for something. Tension with North Korea has really been starting to build up and get higher and higher recently. And in recent months, people have been really thinking like, oh crap, we're going to go to war with North Korea. Like this is like gonna happen. You know, with, you know, Donald Trump going over to South Korea, and he like took an entire like Navy fleet with him. Like that was crazy. That was like a strong move for him, which also I thought was kind of funny. Like of course Donald Trump would do that, but we're really starting to ramp things up. Tensions are starting to rise. You know, we're still putting sanctions on North Korea, and then they just, you know, disregard whatever the heck we're trying to get them to do. And then the whole thing with like Russia is also still kind of backing North Korea, and then China's a complicated situation. It's just a big complicated mess, right? And if we go to war with North Korea, it's not like we're just going to fight North Korea. Like there's going to be other countries, big countries, that might get upset about that, and like a whole bunch of problems and second order effects will come into play with this. It's not like it'll be US versus North Korea and we'll just, you know, free all those people and then kill Kim Jong-un or whatever. That's really not how it's going to happen. Like it's going to be definitely a much more complex situation, and that's pretty much the only reason that it hasn't happened yet, because if we were to act and do something right now, there's also going to be some other effects of that might not be the greatest thing. Like maybe right now there's going to be bigger, more casualties and stuff like that. There's going to be problems with Russia. Russia might get involved, or China is going to have an issue. Like there's going to be other issues right now. But in the Army, we are ramping up. So, for example, in the Army Reserves, I can talk about this right now because this is actually going on. Currently, my unit is going to, for the next annual training, they're going to go over to this base, Fort Irwin, I believe, in California. If you don't know what this is, there's a couple of these different bases around the world. There's one in Fort Irwin, which is California. In like the desert. There's another one that's kind of supposed to simulate like rainforest stuff, and there's also another base where it's kind of like a joint operations where all the different branches and stuff can work together. But in Fort Irwin, that is basically where the US Army is going to train its troops up to go fight, you know, overseas, in the Middle East, or just anywhere in general, basically, as long as it's not the rainforest. Because what they try to do is put you in a really realistic, similar situation to something that you might encounter. So my unit and 10,000 other soldiers, like this is going to be a 10,000 soldier training operation where you're going to go to this place. It is going to be realistic. It's basically going to be training you like you're in a deployment. That is literally like the reason that this post exists. It's extremely huge. It's supposed to be like around about the size of Rhode Island, like the state. Like that's really big. But the purpose of this is to give you the most realistic training. And they're training right now lots of reserve soldiers. They're going to be training 10,000 reserve soldiers because they are ramping up the reserves so that we are ready to go. A lot of the reserve soldiers are ready to go whenever crap hits the fan. Because whenever we go to war, whenever a big conflict happens, the government, the Army, really starts to pull from its National Guard, from its reservist soldiers, because that's what we're here for. So you already have the active duty people doing their thing, but then whenever we need more personnel, that's when the reserve soldiers come into play. And so there's got to be some kind of ramping up training period that's going on. And for the past few years, my basically division, my command has basically been kind of ramping up, and then this is kind of like basically the final test, the final thing that shows whether or not you're combat ready. If you can succeed at this mission, then you're going to be good to go, and it's going to be a great training experience. So that is a pretty big deal, right? It doesn't happen every day. Obviously, there's going to be people doing that, but it's happening more and more, and more reserve soldiers are deploying, getting ready for deployments, and in general, just making sure that, hey, we've got to be ready, all right? So I don't know if that's going to be going to war with North Korea. We could be fighting ISIS. It doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. If you're in the military, you're going to fight whoever you're told to fight, right? If it's North Korea, if it's ISIS, if it's another country that we're having a conflict with, and 3-4 years down the road, it's going to happen. You know, I can't really speak too concrete on some of these things. Like, you can't just really speak like, yes, we're going to go to war with this country in this amount of time. We don't really know that. But from how I've been trained as a cadet going to be an officer, the kind of general tone of all the people going through leadership training, like right now myself, about to be officers, the general tone is you are going to be leading I'm going to be leading, you know, other cadets graduating around my time that I'm graduating to be a second lieutenant are going to be leading platoons or maybe even companies during the next big conflict, okay? So that doesn't mean it's going to happen right now, but over the next couple years, something definitely could happen. And the reason I want to make this video is because it's something that you guys need to consider. If you're one of those people that wants to join the military and you are totally scared to death of going to war, if you're like extremely scared to death of going to war, then it's definitely something you need to consider, especially if you're thinking about doing multiple, you know, contracts, right? So if you're only wanting to do like a 3-year deal, then the chances of you actually, you know, experiencing something difficult is going to be a lot smaller. But for me, I'm wanting to stay in the military for a long time, 20 plus years. If you're wanting to stay in the military for a long time, if you do a 4-6 year contract, I would be surprised if a major conflict doesn't happen during that time. Now again, I don't know if it's North Korea, I don't know if it's ISIS, I don't know what it is, but from what I'm being told, from what I'm seeing, from the ramping up of the military to we're getting ready to go, it's kind of like we're just like waiting for something to happen. We're just waiting for the scales to tip just a little bit to where we can actually do something, where there's an opening, there's a chance to where the Army, the military, United States military can kind of jump in and intervene and do things. It's like we're waiting on a situation like that where we can do this with as little bit of conflict as possible with other surrounding countries. And I personally feel like as soon as that happens, it's going to happen, right? When we're preparing the military as a whole, in the Army as a whole, preparing all of its active duty forces, the National Guard and the Army Reserve Forces, we're all getting ready for something. And then basically, like, when we're ready, at the drop of a hat, things could just happen, right? And you know, with the president that we have now, Donald Trump, who is basically the guy who pretty much just tells it like it is. And that can be a good thing and a bad thing. So you never know, like if he could say something, then North Korea actually has the balls enough to actually do something lethal against the United States, and then that just starts it all, right? So things like that can happen. It is something to consider. I wanted to make a video on this topic. I've talked about it a little bit before in the past, but due to recent questions and recent comments and stuff, I wanted to make a specific video for that for you guys. Just giving you guys my thoughts on going to war with North Korea and whether or not it's really possible, because I definitely think that they're like the #1 contender. Like who are we gonna go up against in the next 5 years? Well, North Korea is probably the most likely option right now. Like, it's, in my opinion, it's gonna happen someday. It's definitely gonna happen. It's just, I don't know when it's gonna happen. You can't really tell that. You know, if I were to talk to higher up people in the military, like actually yesterday, I was at a fall commissioning ceremony for cadets, and there was the brigade commander there from the 82nd Airborne that just got back from Iraq, right? And he talked a little bit about stuff like this, and kind of he's in the same boat as me. Like, we're ready to go. Like, if things happen, like the United States Army will roll in and we will kick butt and take names. But for me, what I'm doing is I'm just trying to do my best to prepare myself. I'm, I guess, trying to prepare you guys as well, both mentally and maybe even physically too, to be ready for this situation. Because for me personally, I knew going in, even though I wanted to join the Army Reserves, there's always still a chance. Like, that is what the Army Reserves is for, is to help out in times like when the active duty needs you, when the reserves is gonna come and help, to be attached to certain units. Like, That's going to happen at some point in my career, and I know that, and I'm preparing for that day. And I mean, it may never happen. It may never happen. Like, I could literally go my entire career and never have any, you know, conflict, never be in any gunfights, never be in any combat scenario at all. But that's not the point. If I lived my entire military career thinking that way, then once that happens, then I'm screwed. You know, going back to like that brigade commander of the 82nd Airborne, he said this whenever he was talking to us. We don't prepare for the easy times. Like, we prepare for the times when your best friend is shot, right? He's like, that's what you're getting ready for. You're not getting ready for anything else. You're getting ready for the crappiest of the crappiest times, the hardest of the hardest times, when you're sitting there next to your best buddy and he gets shot in the face. What are you gonna do? You know, are you going to be okay? Are you gonna be mentally prepared to handle that? You know, if there's a conflict going on in front of you, are you going to be ready to do that? When a war happens, are you going to be ready to leave your family to go and fight that war? Are you going to be mentally prepared to know what you're supposed to know when you go and lead? For me, that will be a more than likely lieutenant, maybe even a company commander at the time when all this stuff kicks off. Am I going to know what I need to know to lead my soldiers to do whatever the heck the mission is? Doesn't matter what the mission is. Am I going to be capable of doing that? And that's what I'm trying to focus on myself, preparing for the worst, right? You hope for the best, prepare for the worst. But anyways, guys, that's it for this video. That's my little bit of 2 cents thoughts or whatever on this whole topic idea of going to war, preparing for war, North Korea, all that stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button. If you want to stick around for some more of my videos, hit the subscribe button. That would be even better. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, comment section is down below. Social media links are right here. I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you guys later.